in Cagefighter Worlds Collide. We have the whole cast and crew here, essentially. We've got John Moxley, the AEW World Champion. We've got Alex Montagnani, the protagonist, obviously. And we've got Chuck Liddell, UFC legend. There's stars coming out of our ears. And then, of course, we have the director, Jesse Quinones. Jesse, I'm going to come to you first, man. It must be a good feeling. Like, the movie's happened. People are really digging it. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, you know, with wrestling and MMA combined, you managed to get like the best of both worlds in terms of having Mox and Jay, and then you have Chuck and Alex. Like, talk about kind of getting that crew together so that when this movie came out, people were going to pay attention and give it its due.
I think for a movie like this, we wanted to make sure that we got, you know, people that gave it authenticity, you know, gave it a stamp of approval and validation. And obviously, with the movie blending the worlds of mixed martial arts and wrestling, we wanted to have, you know, people that kind of from the world of wrestling and from the world of mixed martial arts that really kind of solidified it. So, you know, having someone like John Moxley, who's like, you know, one of the biggest names in the world of wrestling, and then having people like Chuck and Luke and Christian all kind of really gave it, I think it makes people take it serious, you know. And then Alex, obviously, with the, you know, who's had many, you know, over 10 fights in mixed martial arts. So I just think that when people watch it, hopefully they can see that, you know, this is a film that we can take serious, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And Alex, I wanted to ask you, I mean, top marks, my man, it was great. And there was like, when I was watching it, I was getting Rocky vibes from you. I felt like you were channeling your inner Sylvester Stallone. Like, talk about kind of doing the movie and kind of it being a kind of true story of like, it's not all triumph, it's heartache and downs to get back to the top and all the stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, the movie was amazing, and for sure, it's kind of like replicas my life a bit. It's like almost like Jesse wrote perfect for me, man. So getting into this role was kind of easy. So yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs in MMA, and I think this film depicts it not just for MMA but for life itself. You know, a lot of people have a lot of things to go through. So yeah, it all mixes it all up, and I'm getting tongue-tied. Yeah, it's all good now.
John, I want to come to you. Obviously, you were getting into this film. Obviously, when you train for wrestling, I guess the training would be different in some ways to do cage fighting. How did you adapt your training for doing the movie, and what went into that?
I had to put a lot of work into it. The cool thing about movies is, you know, if you get an opportunity to play cowboy, you get to learn how to ride a horse. If you get to play a cop in a movie, you get to learn how to shoot guns and jump over cars and shoot bad guys and chase robbers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So going into this is like, it's a movie, but also I was like, I want to be as fully prepared as possible, and I want to go out there and embarrass myself on the big screen, definitely. So I wanted to make sure I learned every little bit of every little technique I could. So I had a lot of focus in the months and the year leading up to it. But I was also wrestling on a full schedule. I spent the whole summer in Japan. Was doing AEW. Ended up having surgery right before this movie, so I couldn't train at all. So that was a challenge to get through. I almost barely even made the window where I could even do the movie. So there was a lot of work that went into like learning the proper ways to throw punches and kicks and stuff like that. You know, the wrestling part of it to me was easier. You know, like I wrestled my whole life until I started pro wrestling. So like that stuff was so much easier for me to pick up on. A lot of the stand up and the stuff with your hands and being fast with your hands and stuff like that. That was I had to really focus and spent a lot of time trying to come off like a halfway decent, knew what I was doing. So yeah, put a lot of work into it.
And Chuck, I want to ask you, I mean, you know, in terms of MMA experience, you've done it all. What was it like for you to be involved with this? Because you could kind of add stuff about, you've been through this before, right? You've had the wins, you've had a loss, you know how this all works. Talk about being on this movie and kind of helping it feel like what really goes on in a cage fight.
You know, originally that's one of the things I didn't think I was going to be able to do the movie because I was having surgery before, like right before the shooting started. I got the script, I liked it. I'm like, okay, cool. But then I'm reading it, so I called him up. I wanted to talk to Jesse because I wanted to tell him, hey, I want to change a couple little things for you, just to, you know, to make it authentic, a little more real. And And then but I'm like, look, I'm not gonna be able to do fight scenes. I can't, I just had 2 surgeries, so I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm 10 days before they started shooting, I think I was done. And he's like, I kind of wanted you to play the coach. I'm like, oh, all right, that works. And it was really cool because it was really good getting. I like to play a role as a coach. I got to play kind of to play the relationship me and John Hackerman had. Like he's the guy who got me started in fighting. I did martial arts before him, but when I came to him, that's when I started kickboxing and doing mixed martial arts. And so it kind of had the same kind of been together the whole time. And you got to see some of that dynamics in the movie.
And then Alex, I mean, obviously your day job is cage fighting. It's not like you just come into this and acted it. You do it all the time. Yeah. Was there any part of it that, like, during the making the movie that shocked you? Anything that you thought was a new skill that you learned when you were doing it? Because you know how to do the cage fighting part. You got that down. What was there anything that surprised you?
No, there wasn't. It was good, especially working with like John. John was amazing. So nothing really surprised me, man. Me, John, and Jesse, of course. We just put the fights together and got on with it. So no, it was just all in a day's work, man, as they say.
And was there anyone that you kind of channeled when you were playing Reiss? Was there anybody that kind of came to mind when you were kind of trying to, show the other facets apart from the cage fighting?
I don't know, man. I kind of made him up. He's a fictional guy. So, Reiss is Reiss, man. I didn't base him on anyone but Reiss.
Yeah.
And
you say that, but I was actually saying on one of these roundtables earlier, I think one of the biggest awesome parts of the movie was how good of a job Alex did bringing like a real like humility and a charisma to the character and a real likability. Because having one of your first big acting experiences being the lead role, you're the guy that has to carry with your you have to connect to the audience immediately, and you got to carry them through the whole movie, and that's a challenge. And I thought like he just brought like a humbleness and humility to him, even though which is interesting because he's a 5-time champion of the world, baddest man on the planet kind of thing, could walk around real cocky and have been unlikable. But he was so likable from the get-go. You did not want to see him get punched in the face. And I tried to be as unlikable as possible. So it was like a real, like when he lost at the beginning, it was like a real sad moment. Like, damn, that's a really good guy. Like, so it's definitely a credit to Alex, who just did an amazing job. And part of that, I think, is just kind of, in wrestling and acting, it's about bringing, he's a fictional character, but it's about bringing your real personality into it a little bit and kind of making it a little bit of your own. And somebody can write something on a script or a piece of paper, but you have to bring it to life and bring your own energy to it. And I think that's what Alex did.
And John, I actually wanted to ask you as well about one of the scenes that I got a big kick out of was the press conference for the fight. And you're kind of antagonizing Reiss the whole time. It didn't feel that was entirely scripted. That felt like kind of raw energy. What was that like with you and Jesse kind of putting that together and making it feel as authentic as it came across?
Well, it was totally authentic. They were cool enough to just give me the freedom to say whatever I wanted. I didn't have a script in front of me for that whole thing. That might have been one of the funnest parts of the whole shoot, was just standing up there on the stage saying whatever ridiculous thing came into my mind and just riffing, and maybe it'll make the cut, maybe it won't, whatever. But I was just up there for an hour just swearing and calling him names and coming up with just random stuff that came into my head, and that came off pretty good.
Chuck, did that remind you of press conferences that you've seen in the past? Did that remind you of you in your earlier days?
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, some of the hard part was making me laugh. I mean, some of the things he said, I'm supposed to be mad, but I'm laughing. It's like he did a great job, man. It was awesome. That was fun. That was a lot of fun doing that.
Jesse, how important was that? I mean, because obviously at the beginning we see the fight, but before that there's the press conference to build it up. How important was that press conference to kind of set up, for people coming into the movie? Like, you want to see this guy get his ass kicked. You want to be invested in Reiss.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think, the press conference is kind of the greatest, it's a great platform for all of the big characters to kind of like just showcase themselves, you know? And I just felt like I did have a script for it, but when we started shooting it, I just thought, I just want to let these guys rip, you know? And you know, with people like, you know, Moxley kind of just like able to improvise, it just sort of, I was so excited to just sort of see what came up. And I kind of was in Alex's ear the whole time. I was like, you know, because it's a little directing's a little psychological, you know? And so I was in his ear the whole time before the press conference. I was like, bro, don't let him clown you in this press conference. Don't let him clown you. So I was like, bring the heat, man. And so it was kind of a little bit like the fight before, because it was shot before the fight as well. So I was like, I wanted that kind of energy between the both of them. And I was really pleased with the results. I mean, there was like an hour of footage that we shot. I mean, there's only like obviously a scene in the movie, but I mean, if you were to look at all the stuff we shot, we probably could make like an extra, like a DVD extra just for the press conference, you know?
You should.
Yeah.
Alex, when you were there in that scene, like, was it difficult? What was it like? Because it just felt like it went from 0 to 100. You know, it was like, okay, this fight's happening. And now it's like, he's going to make fun of everything that you've done. He's going to call out your wife. He's going to do everything. Like, what was that like when you were filming it?
It was really fun, man. John is amazing. You know, he just makes things appear out of nowhere with his words. So yeah, I said to Jesse, I'm gonna get blasted. I'm the worst trash talker. So yeah, just sitting there in my head, I was just thinking, damn, what can I come back with? And John was just slewing the hell out of Reiss, man. So I was just like, the best I can come back with was something like, there's 20,000 Londoners waiting for you, man. And that was it. John just he cleaned me out. But yeah, it was fun. It was really fun.
But, you know, Jesse, the thing, you know, John said this earlier, I think part of the, you know, by Alex bringing parts of himself into Reiss, like, even though he was kind of almost the silent assassin, Alex was so good through the movie at portraying that character that you really kind of went with him on the whole journey. How did you kind of figure Alex into being in the movie? Because you clearly saw this before we all saw it in the movie.
About I mean, Alex is a very close friend of mine, and we've actually known each other for about 11 years. And we both met because we were both training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back in like 2009. And he had done a teaser that I made that was like a proof of concept for the movie. And then, you know, as I was putting this together, you know, we kind of were packaging it. And we had somebody in mind, and then that didn't work out, you know, for various reasons. But he was always the fight choreographer. And then we were in a situation where we needed somebody to play the lead, and we were a month out. So we needed somebody who could act, but also understood the choreography. And Alex, you know, I always kind of secretly wanted, you know, I knew that he was the guy for the role. And then, you know, what was really cool was that, I mean, obviously this is a big, you know, it was him kind of playing the lead and playing that whole story arc was, you know, the journey of the character was a big thing. So he came out and we kind of really dug into the script and really got into the backstory and looking at kind of his, you know, his super objective and really knowing where he was at every point of the story. And I credit Alex, you know, he really did a lot of work, you know, really embracing the character and really building the backstory and, you know, writing out his own bio and everything. So, you know, this was kind of like, I told him when he came on to this, you know, he's going to have to like give his heart, mind and soul to this thing. And he truly did. And his body. I mean, he got seriously injured during the film, tore his groin, which hopefully no one noticed, but it was he was a trooper, man. So he did an amazing job.
And talk about as well casting John in that role to go up against Alex. Like, did you just kind of feel from what you'd seen of John that he would be a really good fit for that role? And how did that kind of go as you kind of worked together during the movie?
I think, you know, when I wrote the character of Randy Stone, I knew that we needed a kind of a special human being to play that part because obviously we needed somebody from the wrestling world because that's the story. But we really wanted, I wanted to make sure that it was a character like that felt believable, you know, and I didn't want to make it caricaturized or like cartoonish. You know, I love both sports. I love the world of MMA. I love the world of wrestling. And I didn't want any sport to come off in any kind of negative light. And so I thought it was really important to kind of cast somebody that felt like a proper badass that had a real presence to them, a real clout. And when, you know, obviously when Jay Reso he's the executive producer of the project, and we started having conversations with him and my producer, Shane Putzlocker and Sarah Shack, we talked about people and it just became almost unanimous. Like John Moxley was the guy, you know, he had the physical attributes that we were looking for. He was, you know, able to kind of just bring his own persona. He's just a really gifted at improvisation, and he just felt like the obvious choice. And then when we actually started shooting, I was just, it was so exciting. I love actors that kind of, because I'm not so much about like playing the lines, playing the script. It's more about playing the intentions. And with John, the things that he improvised. I mean, most of his dialogue in the movie is kind of ad lib, and for me that's exciting, because I think when I give a role to an actor, it belongs to them. They can then it's their job to kind of like build it and create it. And the things that he came up with were just so exciting. So I loved his performance.
And John, I mean, obviously coming from the world of wrestling and doing this, you've said before you're a massive MMA fan. Who were your favorites kind of growing up? And kind of you don't feel you have to say Chuck, but obviously it'd be nice if you did. Who were your favorites growing up, and how cool was this to finally get to work in MMA in the movie?
Obviously, and I'm not just saying it because he's in the movie and he's on this call and he could punch me in the face through the phone, but obviously Chuck was iconic and it was one of everybody's all-time favorites. I like, Nick Diaz, Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, action guys like that. I have immense respect for anybody that would even step in the cage and put themselves in harm's way for like that. I'm just a fan of the sport in general. I tell you, and I think it's definitely a credit to acting's not easy. Like I said earlier with his performance, it's not like you just pretend and it's all playing around and we're just pretending to be fictional guys. It's a whole craft in itself. And another underrated kind of not underrated, but really unexpected, like, damn, really sucked me in was Chuck's performance in the film as a trainer. I feel like that was kind of another, when I watched it back, obviously the main story is Reiss's kind of rise back up from the bottom, which is a good story for right now, that, for a good message for people who are going to have holes to dig themselves out of and then all this mess in the next year or two. Another kind of story about it though is the patience of the trainer that he'd been with for forever. And another thing to kind of learn was like Reiss had a hard time reconciling with what happened. And when you do that, you kind of lash out at everything around you, your family members, your coaches, whatever. When anything goes bad in life, you have a tendency to want to blame somebody else. And a good family member or friend or coach or whatever will like have patience with that and ultimately kind of forgive you and get back on your side, which is kind of what they do, where they have the kind of the breakup and the split, and then he brings them back into the fold. And that was like kind of a cool, there's a lot of good lessons to be learned from that little piece of the story that that I saw.
And Chuck, I mean, let's talk about your role in the movie as the coach. How was it playing the coach in the movie? And then, I mean, for me, I'm not hugely familiar with MMA, but like when I was watching that final fight, it just like you get so sucked into it, and then your reactions on the outside just felt so authentic. Like, talk about you being the trainer in the movie and how that was for you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a really interesting for me to play. I was trying to play a trainer like John, my coach. Like I wasn't even. It's not even like me. I'm more of a abrasive coach in the corner. I'm a little opposite of the left. Not very relaxed. Like I'm as a fighter, very relaxed. As a coach, I'm yelling at you. I'm threatening to throw chairs at you. I hit you with the chair. So. I get pretty aggressive out there, but the guy, it was a lot of fun playing, like that calmer corner coach like John is, and it's the same thing. Like a lot of that came from, we're like a family. It's like he's one of my guys. When he left, it hurt me, but he's got to do what he's got to do. And when he came back, it was one of those things I just had to let him know. So I think it across good, and I was really happy with it.
And I mean, what about Chuck? That final fight and the whole scene. It feels like for me, like you come across at the end with such an appreciation for MMA and what fighters go through. Do you think that's something that people are going to have coming out of it, as well as an appreciation of how hard it is to do one, not just do a fight, but to come back again and keep doing it and going through all this punishment?
Well, yeah, and I think a lot, like you see some of the stuff with the corner stopping stuff now, it's been a big thing recently with guys not stopping or stopping a fight. But I think I I think in some of the takes we did before, I don't know if it didn't make it in, but I think I said something to the effect, hey, you got to show me something early in this fight or in this round, or I'm gonna throw the towel in. It's kind of it's that, but we have a thing. He asked me not to. My guy's asking me, don't give up on me. Let me do this one more time. Let me give me a shot. Let me finish this. And that's where there's always that thing between a coach with like. If you have the rapport we had and the history we had, it's kind of when any of my other fighters, I would have thrown the towel in right there. He's done. But this is my guy, and he's asking me. So he's there. He's mentally there. I'm like, can you fight really when you can't see? You're gonna be hurt. But you gotta let him go. I mean, I remember Matt Hughes telling me about. First, when I fought Jeremy Horn the second time, I dropped him with a punch, and after the first round or second round, he came back in the corner, and they were checking him for Susan. And the doctor came in, he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." Doctor went out, and he told Matt Hughes, "Hey man, I'm seeing 3 of them. What do I do?" Matt, I think Matt said hit the one in the middle, but that's how.
By the way, Kenny, that's Chuck's line. Chuck came up with that line. Hit him in the one in the middle. That was just to give you credit, Chuck.
Yeah, give him the credit for it. I would, Jesse, talk about that final fight a little bit, Jesse. How were you happy with it when it came out? Because, like I say, it felt like a gut wrenching experience just to watch, but in a good way, because you finally at the end see him overcome it.
Yeah, I mean, I always knew that, like for Reiss, going through that last fight, you kind of want to drag him through hell, so because that's what makes it redemptive. But the thing that was not expected was that he would actually get injured. So initially, he was meant to have like a really grotesque finger injury that he was meant to deal with, and then he injured his groin, and so that it was so severe to the point where we were like, oh my god, this is pretty intense, and we just decided to kind of work that into the plot, and so after round 1. When he goes back to the corner, we just worked that into the narrative that it's like he's dealing with a groin injury. And so we used his lack of mobility, which he actually didn't have mobility in the story. And then, it just became a case of being really creative in terms of the way we shot it, using everything at our disposal, GoPro cameras and playing with frame rates and shutter speed and everything to kind of make it feel explosive and intense, without Alex actually physically having to do much. And then when we getting to the end point was really about kind of, I always wanted it to end with a rear naked choke. So that was always like in my mind, but it was sort of reverse engineering it and kind of using the collaboration between John, Alex, and then also the cinematographer, Mark DeBrescu, and our stunt coordinator, Daniel Ford Beavis, and collectively thinking about, okay, we're going to end it with a rear naked choke. How do we kind of go to a place that feels natural, so from all the way up to, like, say, the guillotine choke, and working all those steps between those two points. So it was intense, but it was tricky.
It worked for sure. John, I want to ask you a question. We've got a contest winner, a Trilight contest winner, who's got a question for you, Jay Rose. And Jay wants to know, if you could host a dinner party and have only 3 guests, past or present, who would you invite? And also, same applies to a fatal 4-way match, which wrestlers would you choose? No pressure.
See, they ask me questions like that, I'll sit here for 20 minutes while I try to come up with the perfect answer. So I'm just going to fatal 4-way match, me, Bret Hart, Terry Funk, Minoru Suzuki in a 4-way. If I'm in a car, me, I'll bring Mitch Hedberg back from the dead for comedy purposes. I'll drive, and then we'll have Chuck in the back seat in case we want to stop at any rowdy bars where there'll be miscreants who want to bother us. We can force it.
That was great, quick answer. And then Alex.
Also, yeah, I don't think it can be understated how much pain Alex was really in when he hurt his groin.
Yeah.
I mean, it was gross, but I was talking about it earlier. Blackened, just like he was in an immense amount of pain, and we didn't have any doubles and nothing like that. We had a whole day and a half to get through this shot. I mean, just standing there, he was in pain. And I've been there before where you're working through an injury or whatever, and all you want to do is just lay down on a bag of ice and get on a morphine drip as quickly as possible. But you got to stand there in the ring and pretend to be like on your game. So
we get him a hard time, man. It's funny.
He's a tough dude who really went through hell for that last day. And I bet I'd probably maybe in a little ways makes it better, because when he looks like he's in pain, he was really in a lot of pain. And that the last thing we shot was like the celebration when he's holding the title up at the end. And I bet he was probably like really it was probably real emotion, like finally this day is over, I can go get this.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, Alex, I want to ask you about that, Alex, because I watched the movie today and I had no idea that you actually had a torn groin. Like I was watching, going, okay, this is the injury. But like the fact that you were able to do that and get through it and act it as if that's what's happening, and I mean that's amazing that you did that. What do you remember about that process and having to work through it?
It was hard because we initially thought it was just a torn groin. When I got back to the UK, it was a torn groin and the bottom of my abs tore as well. So it was either side of my groin. So it was really, really bad. But I'm lucky, seriously, that I had John there and Jesse and Daniel, but John especially because he literally was carrying me. You know, I couldn't put any weight through my leg. I couldn't do much. So he was literally carrying me all my 100-kilo weight. You know, John is a strong fucker, man. He's really strong. So he was carrying me. He was putting me down gently, which again, thank you, man. I thought he was going to slam me, but he put me down like a little baby. So I feel like for John, especially, he helped me a lot and made the scene look amazing. Jesse and Daniel for coming up with the creative stuff, man. And of course, Mark. That for everyone, so combined effort, we smashed it, man. We smashed it.
That must have been an adrenaline rush of a lifetime to try and get through that scene.
It was. And like John said, it literally when it was the last scene and I was holding the belt up, there was so much emotion flooded through me. I was like, I just want to say, be over. I want to go and lay on my bed, maybe shed a little tear. So yeah, it was tough. But yeah, you know, we're fighters and wrestlers, and we're tough guys, man. So we get it done.
Yeah.
But Jesse, I was going to ask you because you know John talked earlier, but he had an injury and he maybe almost missed the window to do the movie. Then obviously Alex has his injury. I mean, it's a movie about fighting, so you know real stuff can happen. How do you kind of roll with the punches as a director when this kind of stuff happens?
I think, you know, it's a fight movie, so I went in knowing that there was probably going to be bumps along the way, you know, and we're dealing with athletes, we're dealing with people that have a very physical profession. You know, John had his issue with his elbow, and because we were meant to shoot some earlier stuff like months before, and we couldn't. I think, you know, if you're too rigid, it's like you're gonna get boxed in, and then you can't, you know, you can't flow with it. So, you know, I think what's great is that we had, you know, I just thought we go with the flow, and then also my producers Shane and Sarah just sort of like real, you know, I think they just sort of embrace the fact that we're making a fight movie with fighters. They're gonna be, you know, in their own, because they're their own respective professions. It's very physical. It's very dangerous. And we kind of just sort of took a really fluid approach to this thing. We knew that there might be a few bumps along the way, but I think the idea is just to kind of corral this whole thing and get it to the finish line. And all things considered, I think, you know, they did an amazing job. You know, they just sort of they're so naturally gifted as athletes that it really I'm really pleased with the way it looked. I mean, I tried my best to make it look as realistic as possible, you know.
Well, and I also want to very quickly give some shout out and props to Jay Reso in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Who knew that him being a talk show host trying to get the dirt was going to be a good fit? But he's an executive producer in the movie. How did he get involved, and how did you did you imagine that role for him straight away?
Yeah, so he got involved through Shane and Sarah. Jay had worked on another movie in Regina, Saskatchewan, where we shot the movie with Hugh Patterson, a film called Super Grid. And Hugh and Shane were quite close, and so Hugh passed the script on to Shane, to Jay, and they met, and Jay came on board as his executive producer. And he's been instrumental. Firstly, just sort of initially, he was the first person that read the script and gave me some pointers on authenticating the wrestling side of it. but then obviously bringing John on board, and then all the cameos like Matt Hardy and Bully Ray, and Tommy Dreamer. So he was really instrumental, and obviously also playing Stephen Drake, which is a really crucial character because, you know, it's like the guy that gets all the scoop, and in a way, he's the lens for the audience. So like the way the audience receives all the scoops and the key plot turns, that's through Stephen Drake. So it's a really important character.
And then I also want to say, you know, Max Black being a woman in the movie, it was such a great touch because, you know, she was doing exactly what one of those kind of people would do, and her being, you know, a woman being in that role, it felt important.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I thought that it was exciting to kind of, you know, like it's a genre movie, it's a fight movie, but I thought where possible, I would like to be a little adventurous, you know. And we've all seen the promoter as this sort of cigar smoking kind of guy, and I just thought, you know, it'd be really exciting with this kind of film to make the character a woman and make her powerful and sexy, and you know, takes no prisoners, and you know, it definitely needed a special kind of actress. And Gina Gershon, you know, she's I mean, she's done like 80 movies, so like, and she's so experienced, and the things that she brought to the set were just so exciting. I mean, for me, it was so exciting as a director to work with somebody like that, who she has real clout, you know, and it was a pleasure.
So Chuck, I want to ask you if the stars align and all of a sudden Jesse writes a sequel and Randy Stone's going to come and try and call you out of retirement, are you going to say yes?
For sure. I'd love to do another movie with those guys. It was a good. It was a lot of fun. These guys are great to work with.
Did you find, Chuck, with all your MMA background, that this movie sort of did MMA justice in the presentation of the fights and the styles? Were you happy with it?
Yeah, well, I actually was. They did some good stuff. I think we had a couple other, you know, bigger moves planned, and some other stuff that, you know, the injury caught, you know, took away. But you know, it is what it is. And you know, I thought that all in all, it, you know, showed a lot of good elements of all sides of MMA.
And Alex, I've got to ask you as well, if Reiss needs to come back and defend his title in a sequel, is it something you're willing to do? Hopefully not with a torn groin this time.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. I want a Reiss and Randy rematch again, man. The trilogy. Let's do it, John. Let's put it on the line.
And John, what about you? Would you be interested in doing a sequel? Would you like to play Randy Stone again?
Yeah, I definitely would. I mean, that's for a lot more money this time, you know, depending on how it goes, you know. My head's going to, if this, you know, people really like this movie, my head's going to inflate very quickly. I'm going to become a big movie star in my mind, and I'm just going to be impossible to deal with. So get ready for that.
And Jesse, I want to come to you finally. Just talk a little bit about overall the movie, the experience, the great feedback that it's got, and then also, is there room for a sequel? Is there potential for a sequel? Have you thought about it, and what would that story be?
Yeah, I mean, so far the feedback's been really great. You know, I mean, in terms of a sequel, I love these characters so much. You know, I started writing the script back in 2014, and I definitely have more to say about them than what's been said. You know, and I almost look at this film as like a chapter in a bigger kind of, you know, collection of stories. So I definitely have more I want to say, and I would love to work with everyone that's on this call. And I think that there's so many exciting paths that we can take. So for sure. There's more to do with the cage fight within the cage fighter world.
Well, guys, I think in a prequel. I mean, like a kind of how Reiss got to being a 5-time champ. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's lots of options. Well, listen, guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on. The movie was great. I'm glad people are responding to it so well, and hopefully we'll get to do this again one day for Cagefighter 2.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.